It's morphin' time!
I have never watched Power Rangers in my life. I have no idea what...
You've never seen Power Rangers.
Well, okay, a little bit. Like, I never really got interested in it. Even when I was a kid, even when I was, like, little, I was looking at this and, like, this is really, really hokey.
Yeah, that's what's great about it.
I guess some people find a charm in that. I was sitting there like...
Man,
but you also really missed out on Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. Because that was when I was a kid.
I watched it a little bit. I do remember trying to get into SPD because it was like, it was space. And I was like big on like sci-fi and stuff at the time, like just exclusively sci-fi. And even then, like looking back at it, I'm just like, why did I watch this?
This came up because I saw a thing about the new Power Rangers Dino Supercharge having 10 Rangers. And I was like, whoa.
see, and I know why.
10 forgettable.
This guy knows it all.
I know why.
They're all
they
forgettable,
have,
aren't
no, I know why they have 10 in that series.
All I remember is the Green Ranger being absolutely badass, and they had like a Titanium Ranger. Everyone else, I do not remember. Oh wait, and an Orange Ranger in SPD who was an absolute like, he was a fanboy and like he sucked. There, that's all I know. Everybody else is forgettable as hell.
He's done for this segment.
Okay, all right. Well, in that case, maybe I could talk finally.
Okay.
Turnabout is fair play. I'm usually pretty mean to Zach, so whatever. So here's the thing. My knowledge of Power Rangers as a whole is pretty limited, mostly to Mighty Morphin and a few things from a couple other seasons. And I did make the unfortunate mistake of watching some of Super Megaforce. That was a bad time. See, my knowledge stems mostly from the Japanese counterpart, the Super Sentai franchise. I do watch a lot of that. So I actually know the reason that they have 10 Rangers in Supercharge. More than just the fact that in Kyoryuger they actually had 10 team members eventually. That's the source material for Dino Charge and Dino Supercharge.
You should explain. I don't think most people understand how that connects to Power Rangers. So you should explain how that works.
Okay, let me just pull up my number here just to make sure I'm correct. So, what we have as Power Rangers here is actually, like, the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers that this particular Megazord here came from was, in Japan, the 16th entry overall in the Super Sentai franchise, Kyoryu Sentai Zyuranger. Basically, Saban Entertainment saw this, were like, hey, let's adapt this. Take fucking action sequences, monster costumes, all of our hero costumes and everything else like that, but shoot new scenes with American actors and basically use some of the show but make our own show out of it. Mm-hmm. And it went pretty well, and they've kind of stuck with that ever since. Partway through, it switched from being Saban doing it to Disney doing it, but it is now back in Saban's hands.
Yeah, didn't they do like ABC? And
Didn't realize that.
Yeah,
no. With ABC or something like that.
I don't know. But anyway, yeah, for many seasons, in fact, the ones where they started filming in like New Zealand and stuff like that for filming all their action and all their American scenes, yeah, that was pretty much started when Disney took over.
Interesting.
Yeah, and then after, like, Disney stopped after Power Rangers RPM, because I think largely because popularity was kind of starting to wane, and they weren't really sure how to tackle the next series, because the next series in Super Sentai was Samurai Sentai Shinkenger, which was the Rangers were all samurai, and it was very, very heavily steeped in Japanese culture, right? And they weren't quite sure how to go about it. This is speculation, conjecture. I don't actually know what thought processes went into it or anything else like that. But the way I read into it is basically they, kind of dropped off after a while, and they were like, yeah, I don't know what we're doing here. And Saban's like, boom, Power Rangers Samurai, here we go.
Yeah.
Right. And from Samurai was pretty well received. I didn't actually watch it because by that point, of course, I was well over Power Rangers, right? And then I they shifted after that to then Power Rangers Megaforce, which used the next series, Go Sager, as a base. But then halfway through, when they did the change to Super Megaforce, they switched to the next series, Gokaiger, which was an anniversary series in Japan, as it was here. The teams had the ability to turn into previous Rangers and shit like that.
Oh.
But their adaptation of it was so fucking bad.
Really?
They, like, gave up partway through. Like, they really did. The thing about Gokaiger was they had the ability to transform into any of the previous 34 Super Sentai teams.
Yeah.
Right? And any of them could transform into any member. Like, they do all red combos sometimes, or all blue combos, or all pink combos.
That's what those pictures I was seeing with like 5 Red Rangers.
That's interesting.
Well, they do also do some crossovers.
Right.
Right? So it might have been Gokaiger, it might have been something from, you know, a thing where they did in fact just have 5 Red Rangers hanging out together.
Oh.
But the thing is, though, a lot of the footage used for the show had them turning into the 15 Sentai that existed before Zyuranger, so before Mighty Morphin, right?
Oh, so they were like, what do we do with these Rangers that no one knows?
Or the one that came after Zyuranger, Dairanger, that they only used the mecha from. They never used the suits, except for the White Ranger. So, for example, at one point, they quite literally, like, their mentor in Megaforce, basically a tiki head attached to a wall named Gosei, is just like, Rangers, you've unlocked the ability to transform into fucking Rangers never before seen on this planet, and shit like that, and they're like, okay, let's do that, and then their fucking Silver Rangers basically like, and I'll just go Mighty Morphin, and they all fucking do their little change thing, and they all become Dairanger, right? Because Kiba Ranger from Dairanger was used as the white Mighty Morphin Ranger. He's like, I'll go Mighty Morphin, and the rest of them are all like, Legendary Ranger mode, let's bring on the new powers. They're all Dairanger. I'm like...
And didn't the Black Ranger get, like, the green...
Well, yeah, that was the other thing. I had a lot of problems with Super Megaforce right from the start. Most notably the fact that there's a lot of stuff between the actor and the suit actor. In Japan, what they do is the suit actor and the sort of out-of-suit actor will sit there and go over things like mannerisms and things like that, like physical movements and stuff, so that they can be as close to in sync as they can. So that when you are viewing the suit actor whose face is obscured by a mask and they're wearing a costume and whatnot, they still seem like they are the same character.
Yeah.
Right? So they work out movements, things like that together. Now, on the other hand, because this series is adapting from something that already exists, you have to kind of try to make your actors match the suit actors so that you're going to be turning them into. Now, this works well if you're using only one series. If you're using 2 series, say, for example, the Red Ranger, right? Whose name in Megaforce I can't remember for the life of me. When he started off as Gosei Red, he had a very particular mannerism about him. The Goseigers were also supposed to be angels, right? Their transformation would involve them having, like, wings and shit like that would then, you know, it was kind of, like, angelic themed, right? Whereas Gokaiger, they were fucking rough and tumble space pirates.
What?
So, when you go from, you know, this guy...
This is why I never took that show seriously.
This is, like, so when you take the guy who has been molded over the course of a season to match up with action scenes involving this, you know, this very, like, heroic Red Ranger type character, and then for the next season you immediately switch him over to being this fucking brash, reckless pirate.
Yeah.
But the actor himself doesn't match up with that at all.
Yeah.
And you get, like, you know, this cocky pirate attitude going on with dialogue coming out of him that is just like, you know, Super Mega Rangers, that's a Super Mega win. And I'm like, that's a Super Mega, I'ma fucking shoot myself. Like...
Oh.
It was bad. Like, it was really bad. Another thing they've officially fucking given up. Like, early on in their adaptation for Super Megaforce, there was a scene where they did do an all-red combo. Now, in Japan, one of them used Gosei Red, right? So the Red Ranger from the previous series.
Yeah.
Obviously, for Super Megaforce, it wouldn't make sense for one of them to use a key to turn himself back into the Red Megaforce Ranger, considering the fact that in Super Megaforce, the Gokaiger mode was sort of a power-up.
Right.
They would first start off using their things to become their regular Goseiger forms, right? And then they would pull out the Mobites, the transformation device of Gokaiger, or what do you call it? The Legendary Morpher. And they'd take a key, stick it in, do the whole thing, and then they'd be their fucking pirates, right? So it wouldn't make sense for one to then downgrade himself with use of a key. Also, the reason they got the new upgrades is because the enemies that they were facing in Super Megaforce were too powerful for their previous forms, right?
Yeah.
So even having a fucking key of your previous form makes no goddamn sense. But they have them. So because conceptually it would make no goddamn sense for him to turn into his previous self, they reshot the sequence to have him turn into a different ranger.
Right.
And so they had a different team up. Tail end of the series, though, you have stuff like they're using fucking Sentai forms from like the 80s and shit like that without any kind of like, explanation or anything. They're turning into like fucking Choshinsei Flashman or fucking Changeman or like anything like that don't have Power Rangers counterparts, and just treating it as like, yeah, whatever, no one's gonna notice. And I'm just like, oh great, look, Chodenshi Bioman. Why? Why is this a thing? The only thing that was really good about it, though, was the Legend War at the end, where they had a bunch of old Power Rangers show up. Even that, I had some nitpicks about, because if you look at the behind-the-scenes stuff, there was, like, behind-the-scenes footage shot, pictures taken, shit like that, of Jason David Frank as the Green Ranger, right? Great to see him back, everything. He's always really happy to be part of Power Rangers, right? And you see him, now in the Disney era, they changed the Green Ranger's helmet, right? They had him show up in an episode of Dino Thunder, and then they also had a few new scenes shot for a revamp in 2010 of Mighty Morphin.
Right.
They sort of just reused the show, added in new transitions and effects, and filmed a couple new things, right? The Green Ranger helmet had silver or white stripes added to part of the helmet. His morpher was changed from his standard gold one to a gray one, and that was pretty much it. The suit looked duller and shit like that, right? It wasn't as good. He shows up on set, and he's rocking the Disney era suit. So he's got the silver stripes on his helmet. He's got the silver morpher. He's got the dull suit, right? By the time the show actually airs, they color corrected it. They went in and digitally color corrected it, probably because enough people like me were like, hey, fuck you, that's not right. It's like, that makes him less accurate to how he actually appeared. Like, the costume that Jason David Frank has, that he appears in conventions with as the Green Ranger, the costume he has is more accurate to his original costume than the one he used in Super Megaforce.
Right.
It's just like, they're not even trying anymore. They're just...
I'm honestly surprised Power Rangers has gone on as long as it has.
Well,
it's probably because of the Japanese influence, but I'm like, I don't know anyone other than you that actually watches that stuff.
It's, you know what, it's true. I know surprisingly few people who actually do watch Power Rangers.
And I feel like no kids even really watch it.
Nobody watches it.
Like, I mean, I see parents buying kids Power Ranger toys every once in a while in Toys R Us and stuff like that, but not very often. Usually I'll go in there to get something from the Legacy line like this guy. But, so that brings us to now Dino Charge, which I only saw the first episode of, but it's already an infinitely better adaptation because they're doing like they used to do, making a new show but using elements of an imported series. Right? So it's going really well. I hear great things about it from people who have actually been watching it. Which now brings me back full circle to end off the segment for why there are 10 Rangers in Dino Supercharge. And in Kyoryuger, in fact. So Kyoryu Sentai Zyuranger, the 16th entry of the series that Mighty Morphin spawned from. As I said before, there were 15 seasons before that had no Power Rangers equivalent. When people were, like, in the early days of, like, fan communication, right? Not necessarily the internet, but, like,
Yeah. How would you do that?
I don't remember. The
fanzines, maybe?
The series was Zyuranger, right? Which they didn't have like kanji for, so they didn't know what the first bit was supposed to know, or supposed to mean rather.
Right.
They, it could have been either, Zyuranger as in like, Beast Ranger, like their animal right? Or it could have been like Jew Ranger, like as in like Jew 10, right? The number 10.
Right.
So we're like, holy shit, does this show have 10 Rangers? Right? And no, it doesn't. But later on, when they brought out a third dinosaur-themed Super Sentai after fucking Jew Ranger and then Abba Ranger, they're like, hey, here's Kyoryuger, and yeah, we've got 10 Rangers.
That's so funny. Name the colors.
So, there's Kyoryu Red, Black, Blue, Green, Pink, that's the core team. Partway through, they get Gold,
Okay.
right? Gold joins them as the official 6th member. They have 2 members. Now, bear in mind, this is again only in the Japanese version because it's the only one I've watched. They have 2 members who are actually ghosts, or spirits, right? They're not actually like... They're warriors from the past whose spirits still reside and can transform and fight, right? And they are Cyan and Gray.
Cyan.
Yeah. Then they have the scientist who created all of their gear as the Violet, Kyoryu Violet, but he throws his back out in the first episode he shows up in because he's old as balls and passes on the powers to his granddaughter. So she becomes Kyoryu Violet. And then finally they have Kyoryu Silver, who when he first shows up is actually their mentor for the series, the wise bird god Torin, who's also an expert swordsman. He's like a bird human. He looks kind of like the artistic representations of the Chozo, only a lot more colorful.
Is he a bird person?
He's a bird person.
I was thinking that too.
Also, bird person.
Wait, what?
Rick and Morty.
Rick and Morty.
Oh, okay.
Speaking of Rick and Morty, if
No,
we're still
not
talking
yet.
about TV.
No.
Not yet.
Well, excuse me.
So he gets killed by the father of Kyoryu Red, right? Who they spent a lot of the series looking for because he was like a wanderer, sort of a mystic kind of person, and it appears as though he's turned to evil and takes the Kyoryu Silver power for himself.
Kills bird
Right.
person.
Yeah, and so he uses it as sort of an antagonist for a bit. Reveals that his true plan is, to actually join them and to lead the enemy to a false sense of security so that they can focus on this plan to like cut off this supply of undead warriors or some shit like that. And then they have a full team of 10 again. Also, the 2 ghosts pass on their powers. One, the Cyan one ghost. The Cyan one actually is played by a Canadian actor as well.
Really?
Yep. Whose name is Robert Baldwin.
Name rings a bell.
Probably not. And I'll show you a picture of him real quick.
I'm thinking Alec Baldwin. I don't even know.
Well, the Baldwins are a big family.
He's a Canadian actor who is like fluent Japanese. He lives in Japan, has a bar there, right? He actually had to throw on an accent to make him sound more like a foreigner. He just kind of made something up to make his Japanese sound kind of weird because he's actually perfectly fluent.
Right.
But yeah, so that's him. He's a big dude too, so it's kind of funny to watch his transformation sequence because the other guy who's a ghost, he's like, Spirit Ranger! Right? Fucking fire! Right? And he's just like, Spirit Ranger, brave in! Fire! Right? And it's like, this is weird. But at the same time, it's fucking great. So anyway, he passes on his power. Are we out of camera? Okay. Well, I'll just finish the story real quick. He passes on his power to Kyoryu Blue's sister, and then Kyoryu Gray passes on his power to his descendant, who is fortunately enough played by the same actor. And so by the end of the series, they have almost all of their auxiliary rangers are different people.
Yeah.
But, whatever, it's all good. And it also gives them a team with more than one chick on it, finally.
Yeah, how many?
2. Only 2. Yeah.
I guess in the Japanese version, that was not common, right? Because Yellow in the 16th season was a guy.
Yeah.
Whereas
They
Mighty
do-
Morphin had 2 girls.
They did have many more teams had girls for yellow and pink. Sometimes girls for blue. Sometimes
Oh, really?
Yeah, it sort of changes from season to season, but Kyoryuger was the first one in a while to have so many dudes on a team and only one girl. So,
Right.
and then eventually they added another one. Like, hey, here you go. You can have some power too. Let's do this. One last thing before we go. So, The next series, I was really looking forward to them adapting Resha Sentai Tokyuger, which was all based around trains. Had an awesome train mecha who at one point used a train boner to bust himself out of a coffin.
Did you say train boner?
I most certainly did.
Okay.
And
I like trains.
so I was looking forward to that because I liked it was a good series. It was fun. But it also was kind of dark because it was basically the story of 5 kids who were given grown-up bodies to fight the darkness that had taken over their town. And a bunch of other towns, right? But if they continued to do so, they would take on too much darkness and never be able to become children again.
That's kind of grim.
Yeah, it was a good show. Like, it was a good show, even though their robot was a fucking rainbow train robot. Right? The line was actually called the Rainbow Line.
All aboard the Rainbow Line.
Man.
But
the Rainbow Connection.
then after that, the current season going on right now is Shuriken Sentai Ninja, which is a terrible name. Ninja. Yeah, I'm not even joking about that.
Oh my god.
But it looks like Saban has registered trademarks for Power Rangers Ninja Steel, so they're skipping over Tokyuger.
Oh.
Yeah, they previously skipped over Tokimei Sentai Go Busters in favor of going with the dinosaurs for Dino Charge. Because in between Gokaiger and Kyoryuger, there was Tokimei Sentai Go Busters, which only had 3 people until they got 2 more Rangers later on. Was sort of a different kind of thing. They were a special mission force that was basically sent out to fight monsters in a city. I didn't watch much of it, but anyway, they completely skipped over that to go straight to the dinosaurs, and now it looks like they're hopping over to another series ahead again.
Yeah.
Which will then put them again 1 year behind Super Sentai. Because there was a couple years where they didn't do a show in between when Disney quit and Saban picked it back up. So when Power Rangers Samurai came out, Shinkenger was already a couple years ago. Right? So I guess they're trying to catch up again.
Yeah.
But they're also skipping over some great stuff. So I don't know how I feel about that. Anyway, I've rambled on plenty long enough about this, so I say we move on to the next segment.
Cool.